The server room hummed steadily, with cooling fans and blinking indicator lights. I sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop balanced on my knees, running diagnostics on the network systems that kept Harrison Financial Group running smoothly. This basement was my workspace, cables looping across ceiling panels, backup generators on standby for emergencies that almost never happened. My family called it playing with computers. I called it maintaining the digital backbone of a $2.3 billion investment firm. Above me, footsteps moved through the executive floors, my father's corner office, my brother David's VP suite, my sister Catherine's strategy department. They spent their days in glass-walled conference rooms, managing portfolios, meeting clients, and making decisions that filled business journals. I spent mine making sure their technology worked. Emma. David's voice crackled through the intercom system I'd installed last year. Emma, you down there? I pressed the response button. Yeah. Dad Sepp's computer is frozen again. Can you fix it? I'm in the middle of a system update. Can it wait 20 minutes? No. Sepp's got a client call in 10. Get up here. The intercom clicked off. I saved my work, closed my laptop, and headed for the stairs. The elevators were under maintenance, naturally, because nothing in this building functioned correctly unless I maintained it myself. My father's office looked exactly as it had in my childhood. Dark wood, leather furniture, framed photographs of him with politicians and business leaders. He was on his phone when I entered, gesturing at his computer impatiently. The screen wasn't frozen. It was showing an error because he tried to open a document requiring software he'd uninstalled last month despite my warnings. I fixed it in 40 seconds. All set, I said. He nodded without looking at me, still focused on his call. I let myself out. In the hallway, I nearly ran into Catherine. Oh, good you steer here, she said, thrusting her tablet at me. This is insect syncing with my email. ISEF got a presentation in an hour. The issue was obvious. She'd disabled Cloud Sync in her settings, probably to save battery. Fixed, I said, handing it back 30 seconds later. Finally. I've been dealing with this for 2 days. She was already walking away, typing rapidly. Oh, and Emma, the shareholders meeting is tomorrow at 2. Dawn set schedule maintenance during that time. We need everything running perfectly. I know, I sent the reminder last week. Good. And maybe dress a little nicer tomorrow. We are hosting some important people. She disappeared around the corner before I could respond. I stood in the empty hallway, laptop in hand, wearing my usual uniform, jeans and a company polo. The shareholders meeting, the event where my family would present their annual performance review, outline plans for expansion, and decide how to use money that wasn't technically theirs. What they didn't know, what nobody knew except my attorney and my private wealth manager, was that I owned 73% of Harrison Financial Group's managed assets. Not the company itself, but the assets. My grandfather, Thomas Harrison, had built the firm from nothing into one of the country's most respected investment houses. He was brilliant, controlling, and convinced his children couldn't manage real wealth. When he died 6 years ago, he left the company structure to his children, my father and my Aunt Rebecca, who retired to Monaco and never returned. They inherited the business, the brand, the clients, and the building. But the actual investment portfolio, $500 million in assets, he left entirely to me. There was a letter, of course. My grandfather liked letters. This one arrived on my 23rd birthday, 3 years after his death. Emma, it began. If you're reading this, you're now the legal owner of the Harrison portfolio. Your father believes he controls these assets. He does not. The company manages the portfolio on your behalf, but you are the sole owner. You may keep this private or reveal it. The choice is yours. Your father is a competent manager, but a poor owner. Your brother is ambitious but reckless. Your sister is intelligent but impatient. You, however, understand that true power comes from knowing how systems work, not just how they look. The company needs someone who sees behind the curtain. I believe that person is you. For 3 years, I kept the secret. I let my family run Harrison Financial Group, thinking they owned what they managed. I stayed invisible in the server room, fixing their systems and quietly learning everything about the portfolio I actually owned. I had access to everything. Not because of ownership, nobody knew about that, but because I was the IT administrator. Every email, document, and projection passed through systems I maintained. I knew about David's risky crypto investments hidden from the board. I knew about Catherine's push into markets she didn't fully understand. I knew about my father's increasingly desperate attempts to match my grandfather's returns while making choices that eroded portfolio stability. And tomorrow at the shareholders' meeting, they planned to propose a major restructuring, transferring $200 million into a high-risk investment fund designed by David. They would need my approval. They just didn't know it yet. The next morning, I arrived at 6 a.m. to run final system checks, presentation equipment, video conferencing, network connectivity. Everything had to be flawless. I was testing the projector in the main conference room when David walked in at 7:30. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Making sure your presentation doesn't stir crash." "Right, good." He set down his coffee and opened his laptop. "Hey, can you look at something? My financial modeling software keeps throwing errors." The issue was obvious. He was forcing a formula into a spreadsheet not designed for it, trying to project 20-year returns on a fund that had existed only 6 months. The software doesn't have enough historical data to produce reliable projections, I said. "Can you make it work anyway?" "I can hide the error messages. I can make the projections accurate. Just hide the errors. The board doesn't need to know the limitations." "Use after presenting unreliable data," I said. "I mar presenting a vision," he replied. "Sometimes you have to extrapolate. That set's called innovation, Emma. You wouldn't understand." I fixed the errors without another word. By 2 p.m., the conference room was full. 12 board members, several external advisors, my father at the head of the table, David on his right looking confident, Catherine on his left reviewing notes. I sat at a small table in the back with the AV equipment, the place where the IT person always sat. The meeting began with my father's performance overview: strong returns in most sectors, some volatility in emerging markets, overall positive but room to improve. Then David took the floor. "Harrison Financial Group has been successful by being conservative," he said, "but the market is changing. Our clients are younger, more risk-tolerant, and interested in innovative strategies." He showed slides of market trends and opportunities. "That's why I'm proposing the Harrison Innovation Fund, a $200 million portfolio targeting high-growth tech sectors, cryptocurrency integration, and emerging markets." The projected returns, he clicked to the numbers I'd fixed that morning. 20-year projections show potential returns of 300% or more. Board members leaned forward, intrigued. Catherine presented next, detailing the operational structure, management fees, client acquisition strategies, and marketing plans. It all sounded polished, and it all depended on assets they didn't control. "Before we vote," said Richard Chin, an external board member, "I like to understand the risk profile. This is a large portion of our managed assets. What our downside protection?" "The diversification strategy," David began, "is insufficient for this level of risk," I said quietly from my corner. Everyone turned to look at me. "Sorry," I added, not feeling sorry at all, "but the diversification model you're showing ignores the correlation between crypto and tech markets. If both decline simultaneously, which happened twice in the last 5 years, you're looking at losses of 40 to 60%, not the 15% maximum you've projected." David Sepp's face reddened. "Emma, This is a board meeting, not tech support. Am aware. Then maybe go fix computers where you belong, and leave strategy to people who understand it. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. I understand it fine, I said. Your projections are based on 6 months of data extrapolated beyond statistical reliability, and your risk calculations ignore correlation factors any first-year analyst would catch. That's SEP's enough, my father snapped. Emma, be respectful during board proceedings. She SEP's right, Richard Chin said quietly, reviewing the materials on his tablet. These projections are questionable. Where did this data come from? Our internal analysis team, David said quickly, which consists of David and 2 analysts he hired last quarter. I added, neither of whom has experience with cryptocurrency markets. Emma, I'm warning you, David said, his voice tight. I think she should stay, said another board member, Maria Santos. She sets raising valid concerns. She SEPs it support, Catherine said. She fixes computers, she SEPs not qualified to evaluate investment strategies. Actually, I said, I have a Master SEPs degree in financial engineering from MIT. I earned it while working here. Night classes for 4 years. Silence. You never mentioned that, my father said. You never asked. You assumed I was just good with computers. But you work in the server room, David said. Why get a finance degree if you wanted to work IT? I never said I wanted to work it. You needed someone to maintain your systems. I was available, and understanding financial infrastructure seemed useful. That SEP's interesting, David said sarcastically. But you, Sester, not a voting member of this board. We appreciate your concerns, but decisions are for stakeholders. About that, said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. A man in his 60s stood there carrying a leather briefcase. I recognized him immediately. James Morrison, senior partner at Morrison & Associates, the firm that had represented my grandfather. Mr. Morrison, my father said, standing, we weren't just expecting you. Is this about the quarterly legal review? No, Mr. Harrison. I sat in here because this board is about to vote on a transfer of assets requiring authorization from the portfolio SEP's legal owner. I just am the owner, my father said. I founded this company with my father. I just managed these assets for 30 years. You have managed them, Morrison agreed, but you don't own them. He set his briefcase on the table, opened it, and placed a document in front of my father. This is a copy of Thomas Harrison SEP's Asset Allocation Trust. It transferred ownership of the entire investment portfolio to his granddaughter Emma Harrison, effective on her 23rd birthday. The room erupted. David shouted something about impossibility. Catherine went pale. My father stared at the document like it was written in another language. That SEP's insane, David said. Dad left the company to us. There was a will. He left the company structure to his children, Morrison said calmly. The business entity, the brand, the client relationships, but the assets themselves, the $500 million portfolio, belong to Emma. This can be legal, Catherine said, her voice shaking. We been managing those assets for 6 years. With Emma SIP's implicit authorization, Morrison said, the trust allows company management, but any major restructuring, such as transferring $200 million into a new fund, requires her explicit approval. My father finally spoke, his voice hollow. Emma, did you know about this? Yes. For how long? 3 years. He repeated it like testing the words. 3 years you known you owned everything. I've known I controlled the portfolio, I said. David slammed his hand on the table. This is fraud. You been lying to us. I never lied, I said. I just never corrected your assumptions. You been spying on us. You had access to all our systems, our communications. That SEP's my job. A SEP's I'm the IT administrator. A SEP's supposed to have access. I used that access to understand how my portfolio was being managed, to make informed decisions about my investments. Your investments, Catherine said bitterly. You said been fixing computers while we said been building this company, and now you said are saying it severs all yours. Not the company, I said. The assets, the $500 million you have been managing, and in some cases mismanaging for the last 6 years. Mismanaging. David Sepp's voice rose. We Sepp delivered consistent returns. We Sepp grown the portfolio. You Sepp grown it at 4.2% annually, I said. The market average for comparable portfolios is 7.3%. That's Sepp's 3.1% underperformance per year. About $47 million in lost potential returns over 6 years. Silence. Richard Chin looked at his tablet again. She sips right. Returns are good in absolute terms, but weak relative to benchmarks. And now, I continued, you want to transfer 40% of my assets into a high-risk fund based on flawed projections and insufficient risk analysis. My own modeling shows a 63% probability of losses over the next 3 years. Your modeling, David sneered. You stirred not a fund manager, you stirred tech support. I SEP me owner, I said. And I SEP rejecting this proposal. You can set just, yes she can, Morrison said. The trust is explicit. Major restructuring requires the owner SIP's approval. Emma is the owner. She SIP's declining to approve. My father was still staring at the trust. Thomas did this. My father did this. He left the company to me, but gave the assets to Emma. He wanted someone who understood systems, I said. Not just financial systems, all systems. How things really work, not just how they appear. And you said been studying us, Catherine said slowly, realization dawning. 3 years, learning everything, watching every decision. Yes. While appearing to be just the IT person, I am the IT person. I'm also the owner. I sit in both. David sprang to his feet. This is insane. Weicester being held hostage by the person who owns the portfolio Weicester trying to restructure. Morrison finished for him. Yes, Mr. Harrison. That SIP's exactly what SIP's happening. I once set accept this, David said. I set'll challenge the trust. I set'll take this to court. You'll lose, Morrison replied calmly. Thomas Harrison had the trust reviewed by 4 law firms. Every likely challenge was anticipated and addressed. The trust was solid. Then we'll vote to terminate Emma as owner somehow, David said. You can't vote to terminate ownership, Richard Chin interjected, scanning the document. His expression had gone serious. Ownership is not determined by votes, but by legal title. According to the trust, Emma holds clear legal title. Maria Santos cleared her throat. I think we should take a step back. Emma, you SEP run the company. SEP's IT for 3 years while monitoring your portfolio. What are your intentions now? Will you keep the current arrangement or make changes? All eyes turned to me. I closed my laptop slowly and stood. I plan to make significant changes, I said, starting with a full audit of every investment decision made in the last 6 years. I want to see exactly how my assets were deployed, what returns were produced, and where we underperformed. That will take months, Catherine said. Then it takes months. The audit starts next week. ISEPL already retained an external firm. You SEP already. My father SEP's voice cracked. You SEP been planning this. I prepared for the possibility of taking a more active role. Today SEPTA's proposal made that necessary. What about the innovation fund? David demanded. You said just killing it? I wills dem rejecting the proposal as presented, I said. If you redesign it with proper risk modeling, realistic projections, and adequate downside protection, I shall consider a revised proposal. Consider, David repeated, incredulous. You said, oh, consider our plan for money we SIP managed for 6 years. Mediocrely, I corrected. You've managed it mediocrely, and now you want to move 40% of my assets into a fund based on flawed analysis. Richard Chin nodded in agreement. Emma, I'd like to discuss your audit plans in detail, he said. Agreed. I said I'll have my team send a preliminary framework. Your team? Catherine asked, surprised. I've been building one for 2 years. Financial analysts, risk specialists, portfolio managers, independent, preparing for the moment I might need to take direct control. You've been building a shadow organization, my father said flatly. Planning to replace us. Planning to support or replace you, depending on whether you manage the assets competently, I replied. Today's SIT's proposal answered that question. Morrison checked his watch. I have another appointment. Emma, anything else? No. Thank you for coming. He nodded and left. The room fell quiet. Maria Santos stood. I move that we table the Innovation Fund pending redesign and further risk analysis. 7 hands went up. Motion carried. The meeting adjourned, board members gathered their things and began calling out, likely to inform clients and partner firms. Catherine stopped by my chair. Emma, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I should have asked about your degree, about what you were doing. I assumed you were just good with computers. She left. David said nothing. He grabbed his laptop and stormed out, humiliation and anger written across his face. Eventually, only Dad and I remained. He sat at the head of the table, the trust document before him. Your grandfather always said you were like him, he said finally, quiet, observant, patient. I thought he meant introverted. I didn't realize he meant strategic. He paused. This humiliating your brother in front of the board, stopping him from risking $200 million based on faulty analysis. This was the right moment. What happens now? He asked. Now we work together to manage the portfolio properly. I said, or we don't set. And I hire new management, that steps up to you. You said fire your own family. I'd fire poor managers, I corrected. Family or not. He looked older than he had that morning. You built this company, I added, your grandfather and you built it. The infrastructure, client relationships, reputation, those are valuable and belong to you. But the assets belong to me. They always did because my grandfather didn't trust me to own them. We sat with that truth between us. He left without another word. I stayed in the empty conference room for several minutes, listening to the building, HVAC hum, distant phones, the ordinary sounds of a business day. My phone buzzed, a text from Richard Chin. Impressive. Let's meet next week on the audit framework. You'll find more allies than you expect. Maria Santos texted. That took courage. Your grandfather would be proud. My private wealth manager just saw the news. Ready when you are. I packed my laptop and headed back to the server room. There was work to do, system updates, security patches, routine maintenance. Tomorrow, I would move upstairs to a proper office and begin the audit. Tonight, one last night in the server room, one more night as just the IT person, before everything changed. Which one of our de cell forndes mein bait? She sees a nightry. The next morning, a note was taped to the server room door. Emma, please come to the executive floor. We've prepared an office for you. Jennifer, HR. I climbed the 5 flights and found Jennifer in the hallway. We converted the corner office, she said nervously. Windows, proper furniture. Mr. Chin called and said you should be taking a more active role. Thank you, Jennifer. Oh, and David and Catherine submitted resignations last night. I stopped walking. Both of them? Yes. David's was brief. Catherine's explained she couldn't report to her younger sister. I processed the news as we reached the corner office. The office looked exactly as described. Large windows, mahogany desk, leather chairs, the symbols of authority. I set my laptop on the desk and felt the odd emptiness of victory. My phone rang. Dad, can you come to my office? He asked. I found him looking at a photograph of him and my grandfather, standing in front of the original Harrison Financial storefront. David and Catherine quit, he said, without preamble. They're humiliated, angry. David's talking to lawyers about challenging the trust. But Morrison was right. It's ironclad. I know, I said. He turned to me. I spent 30 years building this company, training them to manage money, court clients, build relationships. And it turns out the assets weren't mine. Your grandfather gave them to you because he thought I'd be a poor owner. He was quiet. I'm a good manager but a poor owner. I was too cautious sometimes, too bold at others. You've kept the company stable for 6 years. That's something, not enough for $500 million in assets, though. What do you want me to do? He asked. Stay resign. Transition to advisory? I had thought about this overnight. Do what you do best. Manage client relationships, maintain reputation, keep the business running. I'll bring in new portfolio managers who understand modern markets and risk. David's innovation fund is dead as proposed. I'm not against innovation. I'm against recklessness dressed up as innovation. What about me? He asked. Where do I fit? You remain CEO of Harrison Financial Group. I paused. That doesn't change. But investment decisions for my portfolio go through me and my team. You run the company. I control the assets. He nodded slowly. Your grandfather's plan: keep family and management, but protect the assets from our mistakes. He sighed. I hate that he was right. There was no heat in his voice, just tired resignation. He loved you but didn't trust you with money. Those two things can coexist. He went to the window. I'll stay, if you want me to. I'm good at what I do, even if it's not what I thought it was. If David and Catherine can accept the new structure, they're welcome back. If not, I'll hire replacements. He looked at me. You humiliated them in front of the board. You stopped them from risking $200 million. They'll remember it differently. We stood in silence. Your grandfather used to say the most powerful person in the room is often the one everyone underestimates, he said. I never understood. He meant information asymmetry. Being underestimated makes people careless. They reveal things to you they wouldn't reveal to someone they see as a threat. You used that advantage for 3 years. Yes, I said. Sitting in the server room, fixing computers, learning everything. That SEP's terrifying, he admitted. You were watching, knowing, planning. It SEP's unsettling. I was in set planning a takeover, I said. I prepared to intervene if necessary. Is there a difference? He asked. From my perspective, yes. From where I stand, it looks like you were running the company while pretending to be tech support. I was tech support. I was also the owner. Both are true. He shook his head slowly. Your grandfather trained you well, maybe too well. You're more like him than I was. Was that a compliment? I didn't know. He picked up the photograph again. I'll send an email this afternoon announcing organizational changes, introducing you as an active manager. People will have questions. Let them ask. Richard Chin is on board. Maria Santos too. The rest will follow once they see the audit results. You stir confident. I'm prepared, I said. We almost smiled at the small difference. Vetter dices en Waseju. The audit lasted 4 months. I hired 6 analysts, 2 portfolio managers, and a chief risk officer. I moved permanently into the corner office and spent days reviewing strategies, risk models, and projections. I still visited the server room. Old habits die hard, and the new IT director needed training. David never returned. I heard he took a position at a competitor, trying to poach Harrison's clients, and finding his innovation fund rejected there as well. Catherine came back after 2 months, stiff and apologetic. I placed her in charge of client relations. Her people skills could be valuable without control over investments. Dad stayed, managing operations and slowly accepting his new role. We met weekly. Meetings grew professional and productive. Though some tension lingered. The audit confirmed my suspicions. Mediocre performance, several high-risk positions without proper hedging, and a tendency to follow trends instead of anticipate them. We restructured the portfolio, diversified properly, and fixed the problems. Within 6 months, results improved. Within a year, the $500 million portfolio had grown to $547 million. People noticed. Industry journals asked for interviews. Competitors wanted to know what changed. The answer was straightforward. Someone who understood systems started running them. 1 year after the shareholders' meeting, Dad knocked on my office door. "Got a minute?" he asked. More relaxed than before. "Just spoke with Richard Chin. The board is impressed. They propose expanding your authority to oversee the company's operational investments, not just your portfolio, but client portfolios, company assets, everything." That's a major expansion. It is. It means you'd effectively control the company's investments. He considered it. 6 months ago, I would have hated this. Seen it as humiliation. Now I see someone doing what needs to be done, making the company stronger than I managed to make it. Your grandfather saw something I missed. I'm glad he did. "Dad, let me finish," I said. "Always sept steward made it perfect. But I need to apologize for treating you like you didn't sept matter, for assuming you sept failed because you didn't sept follow my expected path, for not seeing your capabilities until you forced me to. Thank you. You grandfather would be proud," he said. "How proud, and slightly terrified of you." "You should be," I said with a small smile. "I know where all the bodies are buried. I have access to all our email. I have access to everything." He left, paused at the door. "Your brother called last night. He sept struggling." "What did you tell him?" "To be patient, to learn, to understand that real power waits." He nodded. "Your grandfather Sip's advice was sound." After he left, I looked out at the city. 3 years in the server room, 1 year in the corner office, and finally things felt aligned. My phone buzzed, the new CIO network infrastructure audit complete. Everything's running perfectly, almost like someone spent years maintaining it properly. I typed back, "Old habits die hard." Then I opened the quarterly reports and returned to work. Because that's what owners do. They understand systems, maintain infrastructure, and wait for the right moment. When it comes, they act.